Hey everybody, I'm Joel Slabo. We just did an interview today with Keith on his interview show on the Keith Andrew Network. It was a lot of fun. If you ever get a chance to do it, I definitely would jump into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am your host Keith Andrew, and this is episode 595. I am your host, the one and only, the D plus player. That's right, I am the D plus player. People who want to know what the D plus player means, a lot of people say they're an A lister, they're a B lister, hell, a C lister. Well, I'm very proud to say I am a D plus player, and that D stands for disabilities. I'm turning that D into something. I'm telling you the word disabilities doesn't have to be who you're going to be. With that being said, I'm here with Mr. Joe. I just want to say, Joe Slabo, I just want to say thank you for accepting my request and being a guest on my talk show.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
No, absolutely. The honor is all mine. For people who want to know what my talk show is about, the whole point of my talk show is to show people that even with having a learning disability, I can still amount to something. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into an example for people out there dealing with any types of learning disabilities and disabilities to never give up and prove people wrong. Prove to them that labels do not dictate who you are and who you're going to be. Just to prove to them you still amount to something. So hashtag break the label. So that being said, half hour, 34 minutes of your time. Say anything you want. Talk about anything you want. This is your time. And with that being said, one thing I found very interesting is you're from LA. So,
Yeah,
the first question I'm going to ask you is, were you born and raised in LA? And what brings you to LA?
yeah. Born and raised in Los Angeles. I live in currently I live in Mid City, which is South Carthage area. I grew up, I don't know, 5 or 6 blocks from where I currently live, and then we moved out to Agora Hills, California, which is it's a little suburb kind of north of Calabasas area, in on the border of LA County, Ventura County. Nice little area, fun little suburb. Graduated high school out there, then went to junior college for a couple of years, and then went to Chico State and graduated from there with
No,
a
that's
business
very
degree.
cool. What exactly did you major in?
I was a business administration business major with a double emphasis in management and human resource management.
Very cool. I find it very interesting how you made a big switch from being in management in human resources to being an actor, storyteller, and comedian.
Yeah, I think that switch for me was it was a really natural move. Ever since I was a kid, I was always making people laugh, telling jokes, just always having fun being in front of people. Um, I always found ways to get on stage through whether through music or through in like little productions here and there and stuff. I was a video game producer for a while. I worked at Vivendi, Vivendi Universal, Activision Blizzard, Mattel, Atari, Electronic Arts. So in between all of the acting and producing and things like that, I had a regular day job for a while, and it got to a point for me where I kind of had to decide with the hours I was working per week, split between game production and acting and producing, what kind of I wanted to do with the rest of my life, and I just took everything and took a leap and moved everything into acting and producing in film.
No, that's very cool. Now, the one thing I want to start doing with my interviews is doing point blank. And point blank is getting directly to that moment in your life where you said, this is what you want to do for the rest of your life. So you mentioned that you were in human resources and that you had a degree in that area. But at what moment in your life when you said, screw it, I don't want to do this anymore, I want to do something different? What moment do you remember in your life where you just threw it up and said you got to try something else?
Yeah, I was working for Vivint at the time, and we were going through we just merged with Activision, and there was about a good 9 months, 6 to 9 months probably, of them figuring out what they wanted to do with the studio. So a lot of our projects were put on hold, and we were kind of just hanging out for a while. And I was getting a little worried about what was going to happen, so I started looking for new work. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, this has been fun and stuff, and it's good work, and is this what I want to dedicate the rest of my life to? And I started looking back just over things and my life and things I've done so far up to that point, and just made the choice that I wanted to circle back and get back into performing and comedy and getting on stage and making stuff. And that was the minute I really made the switch was when I found Playhouse West, where I studied acting for numerous years. And when I saw the way they were teaching people and what the training was like and their way of going about things, of getting a real, like, organic, natural performance out of somebody and putting it together, I was like, it really struck a chord with me, and it was something that I really felt that was that moment where it was like, wow, this is really what I'd like to be doing instead of the game production stuff.
No, absolutely. I'm just looking at the list of questions that has came up for you. What was the very first thing that you wanted to test the water with? You mentioned in the beginning of the episode that you love making people laugh. I'm going to put you on the spot in a couple minutes about that. But was it you wanted to be a comedian? Is it a storyteller? Was it an actor? What was the very first things you did that was your breakthrough?
The very first thing I did that really, that's tough. Just I've always been able to just make jokes, make people laugh. So comedy's kind of always come naturally to me. So I really wasn't looking. I really didn't look much into going into being a comedian at first. And I was like more about thinking about being like a comedic actor and doing character work and things like that. I'd say the first thing I did that really tested the waters with it was, I don't know. There were so many things that happening at once when all that happened. It was starting the classes, studying at Groundlings. I took a stand-up. I took a course where they helped teach you how to build like a stand-up routine, and it ended in a big show at the Hollywood Improv. And we did our first 5 minutes on stage, which was a lot of fun. And going up there, getting laughs, and for your first time out, that was a really great experience. Something that always sticks with you. The first time where you get people to listen and get people to laugh and stuff like that.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Now, what was going back to the three, acting, storytelling? I'm going to ask you two hard-hitting questions about each of them. The very first one I'm going to ask you is being a comedian. Who influenced you?
Oh, man. I've been a huge fan of comedy since I was a kid. I mean, I grew up on Warner Brother cartoons and Looney Tunes. So those are one of my earliest memories, is watching those. Felix the Cat, things like that. Laurel and Hardy, Abbott Costello. The Three Stooges, huge impact on all those guys, huge impact. Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton. As far as like a comedic performance and just that old vaudeville style of comedy. For me, it developed into listening to people like Red Fox, George Carlin. I'm blanking on some of the names.
Well,
So
absolutely.
there's
Oh, go
there's
ahead.
so
I'm
many.
sorry.
It's just there's so many to just try to list. I mean, oh gosh,
Well, hands down, George
yeah,
Carlin, one of my favorites of all time. He was a
yeah.
great legend.
Oh yeah, they and he started a new, a lot of those guys and a lot of the Jewish comedians started out. I mean, when they, Mel Brooks, for example, their jokes weren't when they were doing their sets or older sets. It wasn't too punchy. Some of it was really punchy, but a lot of it was starting on the storytelling technique that a lot of people started picking up with, and that George Carlin really started with, kind of revolutionized it a little bit with the way he started to do his own comedy. Today you have people like, and everybody's been influenced by all of them. Kevin Hart, Dave Chappelle, Chris Tucker. They're fantastic, and some of the people who are just amazing today.
Now, what is, let's see, that's who influenced you. What was your biggest accomplishment as being a comedian?
I had some people ask me to write jokes for them, and then had some people approach me with some other things to write some comedic content for them, that was really cool based on stuff they had seen or things they have heard. So that was really cool, really fun. And it was always nice to get like compliments after a show where you're out there, the show's over, you're just out hanging out at the bar or something. People were just talking to you and telling you what you liked and things like that. So that was always a big thing for me.
All right,
Nice.
so, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Skype, cuts in and cuts out.
I'm good. That's good.
So let's play a little game. I'm going to tell you two of my favorite jokes. One is by Steph McFarlane, and another one my dad told me. And you can tell me two of your favorite jokes.
Oh man. Okay.
You can either or. You can go first, or I can go first.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right, so let's see if I can remember it correctly. Did you know Abraham Lincoln was Jewish?
Oh, he was?
Yeah, he got shot in the temple. And the other one was knock knock.
Who's there?
Inside.
Inside what?
There's only one man who got inside Lincoln's head.
Nice. I like him that they're both Lincoln jokes. That's funny.
Okay, your turn.
Oh man. One of my favorite jokes is, my dad, my grandfather always telling me just ludicrous dad jokes. One of them, I would say, why was the peanut at the police station?
Why?
He was assaulted. It's just a fun. It gets everybody. It's a funny dad joke, and everybody always gets a chuckle out of everybody all the time. I don't know. Most of my other jokes. One of my favorite jokes is one of the first jokes I wrote. It's just trying to figure out how to clean it up a little bit.
You can just say it as it is if you want.
Oh, okay. It's the first joke I ever wrote, and I actually wrote this joke. This joke came out of one of the things somebody asked me to write for them. They were doing an animated short contest, comedy contest, and they said, look, we need like 3 different ideas of a joke and we need you to put this together for us. So I wrote it for them, and I turned this one into a joke. So I live in Los Angeles, and living in Los Angeles, you don't really get a lot of farms and things like that in the heart of the city. So I was asked by my sister and brother-in-law to take my niece and chaperone the special thing she was going to. She was visiting a dairy farm that was just outside of the city. And I was like, sure, I'll go. My life is kind of open to that type of stuff, and they're both working. So I was like, sure, I get to spend time with my niece. It'll be a great time. So I'm chaperoning the event, and we're all standing there outside the field waiting for the farmer to come by. Now, what made this farm so special is that it had exclusively black dairy cows. And that's kind of rare, I guess, is what they were saying. And so the farmer comes out, and he starts walking towards one of his prize cows, and we're waiting for him to give us like this great example of something, and of how to milk a cow. And he's kind of odd looking, little strange dude. He takes off his overalls, just slips them down, and he starts having sex with the cow right in front of all these little kids right there. And I didn't know what to do. I'm the chaperone. I'm supposed to monitor these kids. And my niece looks up to me and she goes, "See, I told you that's how they made chocolate milk." So, yeah, it's one of the first jokes I ever wrote. It's just a fun one to always tell, because it's a nice mixture of that kind of like story joke with a little bit of a jokey joke wrapped into it. So the thing I've noticed about that joke too is that every time I tell it, but like right now, it's always different, because since it's based in like the storytelling nature of a joke, I'm always changing it somehow to make it a little bit different for people.
No, absolutely. And, my dad's actually a retired teaser, a famous teaser in New York City. And he said, teasing, it's a lot of easy. It can be stressful, or it can be a lot of fun. And it's about like 2 hours of stand-up. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm a cashier. I won't say where, but I'm a cashier. If I can make customers laugh, at least I can make the time go past.
Yeah.
So I think it was today or yesterday. I don't remember. I think it was today. This couple bought a doghouse. So I was like, "Oh, I see you bought a new house for your mother-in-law."
Yes. Nice. How did they like it? Did they laugh?
They did, even though I am in punching distance.
That's fun.
The other one was, the last one was actually the watermelon. It was just big-ass watermelon. Never seen anything like it. It has to be like something on steroids. And so I put my hand on it, I slapped the watermelon, and I went, "Huh, I see you like watermelon." So they didn't say anything. I just looked at me like I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
But my sister says to me, if you really want people to think there's something wrong with you, you should look in a mirror. But all they have to do is look at you. But I'm really good at acting bizarre, so I guess I have that working for me.
That always helps. It helps. The physicalness always helps.
But the next question I was going to ask you is something I'm looking at right here. It's very interesting. Is you are a storyteller. Now,
Yes.
I can't tell a story, write myself out of a wet paper bag. But what can you tell us about being a storyteller, and how many years have you been a storyteller?
I've been telling stories for, I would say, on this level, almost 10 years now, easily. And the first thing is, when anybody starts doing that type of work, they always think they can't do it because it seems like such a big mountain to climb. But anybody can tell a story. I mean, you start with your beginning, middle, and end. Those are your three components to start with. And as long as you start there with that idea that sometimes everyone tells a story differently and everybody creates differently. For me, it starts with an idea of anything. I had a friend's story. He was telling me that he was basically screwed over by an airline trying to fly back to New York, and so they ended up having to cancel the ticket and then buying a brand new ticket, and they weren't allowed to refund and stuff like that. So he's telling me the story while we're bartending, and I was like, "Dude, tell me that story again." So he told it to me again. I was like, "Look, I'm going to write a little short film about it, and then we'll film it. It'll be like 6-7 pages." And he was like, "Okay." So we wrote it. I wrote it out. I added some things to it and changed what he told me a little bit, because I made it more of a beginning, middle, and end, where we changed the structure over to it, so where he wakes up late for his flight, he's running out of the house, and so he locks himself out and realizes that he left his keys inside and his wallet with his ID inside. So there's no possible way for him to get on the plane, since you have to have an ID now and all that stuff. So he's trying to call the airline agent ticket, the airline, whatever, customer service people. And he's like, hey, I checked in on my app for the flight, but I'm not there. I'm going to miss the flight because I'm locked out, blah, blah, blah. And the customer service people are just jerks. And basically, everyone's experienced it. And they ruin his day. And at the end of the thing, he ends up canceling his ticket and losing out. And he can't go on the flight because no one's helping him. So it's kind of like starting with that idea of something, and then I find ways to. For that one, I just felt that it's so relatable. Because everyone's had that experience, so let's put it in a context where you could show it to somebody visually, and they'll understand what's coming across. And there's a lot of jokes, a lot of fun stuff in there. There's a lot of fun interaction between the customer service reps and the guy who's trying to get his ticket and stuff like that. And even at the end of it, the joke's kind of, he's the joke, he's the end, he's the punch, what happens to him at the end of the story, but it just wraps up really nicely. So it's always like starting with that idea. Sometimes you start with the end in mind because you have your ending and you work backwards. Sometimes you start with the beginning and then you work all the way through your end. A lot of different ways to do it. Sometimes I'll write different ways depending on what the topic is that I'm writing about. Sometimes I'll have, if it's a big feature that we're in the middle of right now, we start with, we'll beat out all the scenes, like the major scenes. And then once you have all that beaten out, now you're just looking at ways to connect everything for it to make sense in your timeline. So that's another way that I kind of do things.
No, absolutely. Now we're going to take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, I'm going to ask you 2 more questions, and I'll pass the show over to you.
Great.
Williams. This is Vanessa Lina. Adrian Lotto. I'm Cynthia Bastinet. I'm Sonia Fisher. This is Shane Smith. My name is Alexandra Bowie. This is Amelia Clover. Hi, I'm Amy Linden.
Hi, I'm Nicole Brown.
Meg Green.
Hi, my name is Asata Caldwell. Hi, everybody. I'm Brooke Francie.
Hi, I'm Brinford.
Hi, I'm Casey Dunn.
Hi, it's Cassandra Kavinsky.
Hi, I'm Christina Frieza.
I'm Cindy Hogan. I'm Courtney Sinella.
Hi, I'm Daisy.
My name is Deborah Jane East.
Hi, my name is Danielle Marcia.
Hi, everyone. I'm Victoria London.
Hi, I'm Heather Crona.
Hi, I'm Heather Callahan Stevens.
Hi, I'm J. Nicole Ralph.
My name is Jamie Patrell. My name is Turi. My name is Julia Brankovich.
Kathleen Wills.
Kimberly Amato.
Hi, my name is Laura Putton.
Hi, I'm Laura Chapanis.
Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa Damas.
This is Michelle Mupo, a.k.a. Fuchsia. I'm Rachel Olivera.
Hi, my name is Sarah Joy Mount.
Hi, I'm Susan Winder.
Hi, everyone. This is Venus Leone.
Hi, I'm Showtana.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Herrera, and I was just on the Keith Andrew Network. It was tons of fun. We used up all our time and then some. I really recommend this show, and try to be a guest on Keith's show. It was super
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 595. That's right. Season 6, episode 595. I'm here as Joe Slabo. I just want to say thank you for being a guest and continuing to support us. Now, I want to say the first thing is, for people who are interested in buying any of the following: Keith Andrew Network travel mugs. I'm going with a football theme this year. And also, if you don't like the travel mug, we also have the normal mug. So they can always message me afterward. You can't even see it. They can always message me afterwards, see which one they want. Well, on the subject, would you be interested in buying one?
Yeah.
You don't have to answer that, but you can always think about it afterwards. But the last 2 questions I want to ask you is acting, because this is about disabilities and everything. And I want your honest opinion as an actor. With everything you accomplished in your life, have you worked with people, well, let me rephrase that because you're working with me. Have you worked with people with disabilities, and are you willing to work with people with disabilities?
I have indirectly worked with my friend's son who has autism. And I'm always open and willing to work with anybody, really. It's kind of part of being an actor. you can't be unwilling to work with somebody, because you never know. I mean, it could be something amazing that could happen between on stage, on set, whatever ends up on film. It could be great, and you can learn so much from anybody acting with another person and how they work and how everything that they do, and learn from each other. I mean, it's fantastic. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, my friend's son was on this past year. I think he was the first autistic actor who was on the show The Resident, I believe. Yeah, it was really cool.
No, that's amazing. And
Yeah.
the reason I bring it up is, for me, a lot of people say, for you, let's do a little comparison. So I'm going to give you a little example of what I'm talking about. You get a little card before you do an interview. This is where you got to talk about blah, blah, blah. And you're like, yeah, sure, no problem. But for me, I would have to have someone, so like, if it's something easy, like what I wrote for you, actor, talk about acting, talk about being a storyteller, being a comedian, yeah, I can do that. But if you give me like a whole list and my disability kicks in, I'm going to blur. By using this as an example, is it hard, and are people discriminated against, say, they want to be an actor, but they have a hard time reading. They can't read a script. Or they have a learning disability, and they have, learning issues. But they're very passionate. Like for me, for an example, I learn at a slower pace, but I can't read a script, and I'm not really good at reading. Do you think that will hinder me and hurt me from being an actor? But at the same time, if you have the heart and passion, will that balance it out?
I don't think it would hinder you. I think it would just have the people you're working with and yourself start working in a different way for you to be able to learn it. There's always a way to learn. It's just the how of learning it. And if someone has the drive and the passion to do it, they should. That just because they have a disability or anything in their way, they feel like a barrier to themselves. They should at least, give it an attempt and try and go for it and see how it's going to turn out. Because you can't tell yourself no for just because of your own reasons. You never know what's really going to happen unless you go out there and do it. So I think it's more open, probably within the last 5 years, probably, or something like that, to people with disabilities and things like that in front of camera. I think more people are looking for somebody who's going to portray somebody with that disability who actually has it, instead of having an actor, learn what that disability is about and try and do their best attempt to portray it in a very honest way. So I think that's kind of shifting a little bit right now.
No, I agree. And I butcher last names, and because it's part of my disability, it's hard for me to pronounce it. For me, I just type it on my phone, the text is speech, and it repeats it for me. Oh. Once I get my own studio, I can have an earpiece, and they can just help me pronounce it. But do you think, I watched Bill O'Reilly, Bill Maher, and that's exactly who I want to be. Bill O'Reilly, Bill Maher. Come out, do my whole skit. But, do you think it's going to be eventually okay to accept people for who they are, and you don't have to give them a hard time if they can't do certain things like other people? For an example, you can do laps around me, but I use you for an inspiration, so I try to copy what you're doing, but it's only going to be on a scale or back. Do you think, I have to be a carbon copy of you, or do you think just be the best self you can be?
I don't think anybody needs to strive to be a carbon copy of anybody. So I think it's a lot of trap people fall into, because they see something. And when you're finding your voice, you're kind of taking stuff that you see that you like and imitating it. And then as you imitate, you start to find your own voice and you find your way about doing it. And the more you do it your way, the better you get at it. So it's not, I think everybody starts as an imitator. It's just the way I think we are as people. And the more you do it your way and start learning what works for you, the best thing to do is be more of yourself. And I think that's what attracts viewership or just more people to see what you're doing and what interests people. Because they say 10 years for like everything. They say it takes 10 years to break into this, 10 years to find your voice. But the Malcolm Gladwell with the Outliers, how it takes 20,000 hours to get to where you really want to be a master of something. It's just time. It's just the time spent, learning about yourself. The more in doing it your way, and the more you deepen it, and the more you learn about yourself, and the more you are yourself, I think it's what's more attractive to people. So definitely, you should strive to do it your way, and be just more of you.
No, absolutely. Now, passing the show over to you was the last 4 minutes and counting. Was there anything you wanted to ask me? Anything you want to promote? Any projects coming up?
For yourself, I was just wondering how you got into this, like the interview style. Like for you, how did you get into this?
Well, make a long story short, because I've been saying this for over the years. I used to work in retail. I got sick out of it. It took me a whole year to recover. And I went to West Point. I tried to become a custodian. Long story about that. Didn't work out. 2010, I was working at Home Goods. And I worked there for a day or so, but I have a job coach at the time. And I don't like being micromanaged. I don't like someone, following me and telling me to do this or do that. Plus, I had people watching me. That just bothers me. I don't like feeling like a hamster in a ball. And like, oh, what is he going to do today? Is he going to go here? Or is he going to go over there? Oh, who knows? I hate people that do that. It drives me up a wall. And I said to my dad, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be miserable. So I was going from job to job. 2013, I used my brother for an inspiration. I watched what he does. And said, you know what? Instead of using my disability as a crutch, and saying, I can't do this, I can't do that. And my brother before me said, I don't know what to do with my life. And this is one of the things that really got to me. I don't know what to do with my life. And my parents were like, oh, talk to your brother, go talk to your sister. They know people. They can hook you up. They can put you in the right directions. And I said, what about me? And this is the part where it pisses me off. It says, you're not educated. You're not qualified. You're not capable of keeping your mouth shut, even though that is true. You're not educated. You're not qualified. You can't keep your mouth shut. You're not able to do anything. You never went to college. And you're going to be a burden or placed in a group home because you can't do anything. You're just going to be a burden. So I said, screw it. I'm going to show you what's a disability. Look at what I'm able to accomplish. And for the past 6 years, this June will be 6 years, look at what I'm capable of doing. Of course, yes, I made some mistakes along the way. You can see that from season 1, how I recorded, before I get to season 1, I did phone interviews. I was still having panic attacks and social anxiety. So I did it over. So season 1 is pretty much, how you see on the screen, you see your reflection, and that's season 1. Season 2 is the same thing. You see your reflection, but this is the camera recording from the computer screen. And then someone, I don't know who, came across my brother and said, oh, we noticed your other sibling did a talk show. It's very interesting. But why is he hiding? Because I'm in the small little box here in the full screen. Because I did not want to be seen. Now I'm saying, if you want this to be serious, you cannot hide. You need to put yourself out there. So I found something called eCam, where it's cut in half. I'm on the right, you're on the left. Or if you interview me, we can always flip it. So you see a process. I'm recording from the phone, from doing phone interviews, from having it cut in half, from doing double interviews, from doing group interviews. You see a process. I didn't want to do this from the very beginning because you weren't going to see a process. Of course, yeah, I did things ass backwards, but I'm showing you, look at what I'm accomplishing. And everyone's like, yeah, it's great, but if you haven't made it now, you're not going to. And that's the thing. There's people that make it and they self-destruct. You know, Justin Bieber, you know, the kid from Home Alone, you know, Dennis the Menace, Britney Spears. They all had a breakdown and they all self-destructed. I'm taking one step at a time, and this is what I want to do until the day I'm dead. Until I'm 6 feet under, this is what I want to do. I'm not saying that to be cute. I'm not saying that to be funny. I mean it because I really found like I found something I can really get behind. And I don't know, I use a lot of different variations of it. I use my dad for an inspiration. I use my brother for an inspiration. It started with a birthday wish. I just got tired of using my disability as a crutch. There's so many different variations of the story that I keep coming up with. But the biggest one I lean towards, you gotta laugh at me because you gotta think I'm an idiot. Yes, it did all start with a birthday wish, but my disability said, for me, I'm gonna show you I can break that.
That's fantastic.
No, absolutely. Now, I do have a couple questions for you off the air, but
Sure.
Wrapping up, the first question I'm going to ask you is, how can people follow you on social media? Are you on LinkedIn, Stage32, Twitter, Instagram?
I'm on Instagram and Facebook, and it's just Joel Slabo for both. That's just my branding is my name. So you can find me on both of those, and then you can find me on YouTube as well, my channel.
And you're not a fan of LinkedIn, apparently.
LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn, but it's kind of, it's more of what I used to use when I was in production and stuff like that, so I don't really use it that much anymore. Yeah.
I try to use a little. I'm on pretty much everything. LinkedIn, Stage32, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Tumblr, MySpace. Even I do miss MySpace when that was a thing. High Five, whatever the hell that is. IMVU, even though that's kind of a waste because you have a imaginary world and it's hard to network with that. I used to have a Messenger before they got rid of that. I'm pretty much everywhere. A lot of people say I'm like a bad rash. Eventually gotta pop up somewhere. But my big question, how I can't even speak. My last question to you, how I end every single episode. When I first approached you to be a guest on my talk show, what was your first reaction? And after doing the interview, how do you feel now? And would you recommend it to other people who are hesitant about it?
I thought it was really cool that you just reached out to me out of the blue. I was like, that's great, cool. Yeah, I was excited to do it, and I'm glad I did. It's a lot of fun. It was great talking with you. So, yeah, definitely recommend it to anybody.
Absolutely, you're supporting a good cause, and you're making a new friend out of it. So it's a win-win.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I do have a couple questions for you off the air.
Sure.
But wrapping up, it was a real honor and privilege having you as a guest, and I'm looking forward to part 2 down the road.
Thank you. I am as well.